The gaming industry is facing a silent invasion, and this time it's not from the Reapers. Mass Effect, one of the most beloved franchises, is under attack by its own creators. Imagine a world where cherished characters are rewritten to fit a controversial agenda. Today we're diving deep into the shocking fallout from the latest Mass Effect board game, where the designer hurled insults at fans for criticizing the inclusion of gender pronouns. What happens when the guardians of gaming lore turn against their own audience? Get ready for a wild ride as we expose the chaos behind the scenes. The gaming landscape is facing a troubling transformation, with certain factions attempting to infiltrate and reshape the very essence of our favorite franchises. This time, the target is the iconic Mass Effect series. Instead of being threatened by the Reapers, it's the very developers of these games who have become a new adversary. These creators, wrapped up in their own egos, seem to have turned against the loyal fanbase that has supported them for years. In a recent incident, the designer of the new Mass Effect board game, Priority Hagel, found himself embroiled in controversy after altering the game's lore. Instead of addressing the backlash from fans who were unhappy with the changes, he chose to lash out, labeling critics as effing man-babies. This approach not only failed to quell the dissatisfaction, but also intensified the backlash against him. So what sparked this uproar? It all began with a headline that left many scratching their heads. Mass Effect board game designer attacks fans for rejecting gender ideology. It's a familiar narrative in today's gaming discourse, where ideological messaging often overshadows storytelling. Many have pointed out how the game seems to push a specific gender narrative, as seen in screenshots that highlight characters like Shepard with he/him pronouns and Liara with she/they pronouns prominently displayed. Additionally, it's worth noting a rather amusing oversight in the top image. The word adrenaline is misspelled, missing a crucial D. It's a rather careless error for a game that aspires to hold such a beloved legacy. However, the primary concern among fans revolves around the introduction of pronouns for the characters, specifically the way they are prominently displayed directly beneath the character names, leaving no room for ambiguity. Now, before we delve into the implications of these pronouns, let's examine the root of the issue. Some viewers may support the idea of adding pronouns to characters and wonder what the fuss is about, while others may firmly oppose it, clinging to traditional gender identities and believing pronouns are unnecessary. Regardless of where you stand on gender ideology, it's hard to overlook that this situation is a clear example of virtue signaling. Promoting something as contentious as gender ideology can be a risky move for any game or franchise. While a handful of titles may thrive despite or because of such choices, many others struggle or fail entirely when they introduce divisive elements. That's essentially what unfolded here, especially when the game's designer Eric Lang took to social media for a public post on Blue Sky, a platform similar to Twitter. He expressed his frustration, saying, "I'm so proud of Mass Effect and so endlessly tired of the effing manbabies who try and tank our board game geek rating because we took 10 seconds to add pronouns to the squad mates. I realize that reacting to them gives them oxygen, but F off." His response resembles a child throwing a tantrum, liberally using profanity as if it's a new discovery. Instead of addressing the criticism maturely, he resorts to name-calling and displays a lack of composure when faced with negative feedback. This behavior exemplifies what many would consider man-to-baby. Actions complaining about criticism while belittling those who voice their opinions, particularly when those opinions are less than favorable. Before we examine how this controversy unfolded, let's explore why the incorporation of pronouns in this instance raises significant concerns for myself and many others. As a dedicated fan of the Mass Effect series, I've invested countless hours into this franchise. I thoroughly enjoyed the first game and loved the second even more. It's truly one of my all-time favorites. Right now, I'm working my way through the third installment, though finding time to play is a challenge. Personal responsibilities, managing this channel, and keeping up with shows like Dexter all demand my attention. But I digress. The core issue that I and many fellow Mass Effect fans have with the newly added pronouns isn't solely rooted in a rejection of gender ideology, nor is it about the obvious fact that the male version of Commander Shepard is labeled with he and him. The real problem arises with Liara, whose pronouns are listed as she/they. For those who may not be familiar with the series, it's clear that Liara is depicted as a female character, which makes the addition of they seem redundant and unnecessary. However, for those of us who are fans, the addition of they for Liara is particularly perplexing. The Asari Liara species are monogendered, which means that concepts of male and female don't apply to them in the same way they do in human society. People refer to Liara as she simply because she physically appears female, but that's not reflective of a gender identity as we understand it. In Mass Effect 1, Liara herself points out male and female have no real meaning to us, Asari. This highlights a fundamental misunderstanding at play. The idea that Liara could possess a they pronoun contradicts the essence of her character and species. The Asari do not identify within the binary framework of gender, so assigning them additional pronouns feels misplaced and out of character. The Asari, by nature, have never needed gender distinctions, as their culture had no concept of male or female for centuries. They've been seen as female mainly because of their physical appearance and mannerisms. When space exploration began and contact with other species became common, the Asari started adopting female pronouns to describe themselves. Essentially, their entire species is female-coded. Although Asari can become pregnant, it doesn't require a male counterpart. Their method of reproduction is parthenogenesis, which involves a unique merging of their nervous systems with their partners. While sexual interactions can occur, they aren't a prerequisite for reproduction, and the offspring will always be Asari. Throughout all the Mass Effect games, every Asari character has consistently used she or pronouns, and Liara has never identified with they pronouns. By introducing the she/they pronouns for Liara, the developer essentially diminishes the character and undermines the established lore of the franchise. Unfortunately, adhering to lore seems to be a challenge for certain activists who often disregard it in favor of promoting their own agendas. When dedicated fans point out inconsistencies and inaccuracies, these activists tend to become defensive and dismissive. It's disheartening to witness established franchises suddenly pivoting to multiversal narratives, which often serve as convenient excuses to bypass lore-related issues. However, Mass Effect does not operate within a multiversal framework. It has a single, cohesive canon. This makes it crucial for fans to protect the integrity of the lore from retconning efforts that may arise from activist influences, particularly when creators like Eric Lang profess to love Mass Effect while simultaneously disparaging fans for trying to safeguard its legacy. In one of his tweets, he expressed frustration about the negative reviews, stating, "I hate even talking about this on social media, but if you played the Mass Effect board game, would you mind giving it a rating on BGG to offset the effing man-babies trying to tank the rating with 1 star because they can't handle looking at pronouns on a character sheet?" This sentiment further highlights the disconnect between the developer and the fans, especially considering the ratings breakdown at that time: 14 ratings of 10 and 10 ratings of 1. Keep that ratio in mind, as it may play a significant role in understanding the game's reception over time. It's quite ironic for Eric Lang to call people man-babies while he himself is lamenting negative reviews on social media. One user responded to his tirade, saying, "Good sir, I was about to go on BGGG and do that because you are Eric Lang and I will always respect you, but maybe you should reflect, listen, and stop centering your politics in a space where others want to feel included." Lang's response? Simply nice try. Interestingly, all of his Twitter posts were eventually deleted shortly after they were made. Whether this was due to pressure from BioWare, a sudden change of heart on his part, or a realization that his online outbursts were negatively impacting his sales and income remains uncertain. Regardless, he did delete them, including a post where he expressed regret, saying, "Deleted this stupid post because, well, you know why? I hate deleting posts that I stand behind, but EF it. Twitter sucks so effing much." This is not the hallmark of someone steadfastly standing by their convictions. Instead, it paints a picture of someone who may come off as tough online, insulting critics left and right, but would likely back down and apologize if confronted in person. Lang seems to have no qualms about hurling insults on social media, including his Bluesky account, which is a lesser-known Twitter alternative. This platform creates a sort of echo chamber where users can say and do as they please, believing that their critics won't see their comments because they're surrounded by like-minded individuals. Bluesky serves as a refuge for those who feel unsafe expressing their political views on Twitter. In a revealing post on Bluesky, Lang shared rare political post on Bluesky, but wow, not rare by the way. Political violence has no place looks at USA's serial bipartisan funding of international political violence throughout all of history. This statement illustrates how he feels emboldened in that environment, but it also highlights a troubling tendency to politicize everything, even in a space meant for gaming. As I mentioned earlier, it's common for people on platforms like Bluesky to engage in political discussions, which isn't ideal if you're trying to market your product to a broad audience. The context of Eric Lang's posts is crucial, especially since one of them was made on July 15th, just 2 days after an assassination attempt on former US President Donald Trump. In this instance, Lang seemed to justify the act of political violence, a sentiment that many found deeply unsettling. However, because it was Bluesky, the backlash was limited and few were paying attention. Lang also reacted to the mounting negative reviews of his game with another post, which I believe has since been deleted. He lamented, "This is what you get for letting your guard down for 1 second and speaking in anger. F me, I'm just tired." It's clear that his comments had a detrimental effect on the ratings of his game. If you compare the ratings before and after his insulting remarks and his desperate pleas for positive reviews, the shift is significant. Before his tirade, the ratings had 14 10-star reviews and 10 1-star reviews. After his outburst, those numbers changed dramatically. The 10-star ratings jumped to 30, while 1-star reviews skyrocketed to 52. That's an increase of 16 positive reviews, but an astounding rise of 42 negative ones. You could certainly call that instant karma. For anyone suggesting that Lang was simply being unfairly review bombed, it's worth noting that he was the one actively soliciting positive feedback. It seems disingenuous to expect a flood of positive reviews while simultaneously deriding your critics as man-babies. The backlash was almost a natural consequence of his behavior. Instead of addressing the criticism constructively, he opted to attack those voicing their concerns, which only spurred more negative reviews. This situation illustrates a clear disconnect between creators and their audience. When you lash out at your fanbase, you shouldn't be surprised when they respond in kind. Lang's approach not only undermined his credibility, but also alienated potential supporters who might have given his game a fair shot. The ratings breakdown has deteriorated even further, with 10-star ratings climbing to 49, but 1-star ratings surging to an astonishing 164. This has dragged the game's overall rating down to a disappointing 4.4. If Eric Lang felt exhausted before, he's clearly overwhelmed now. The reality is that you truly reap what you sow, Eric. While it might be comforting to receive a pat on the back from your wife's boyfriend for learning how to express yourself more colorfully, it's a dangerous game to alienate your consumers, the very people who purchase your games and support your livelihood. It's no surprise that when you take aim at your audience with a modern trend of dismissing their concerns, the result is a decline in sales and potential job loss. The gaming community isn't going to sympathize with someone who infuses their work with woke ideology while simultaneously trying to virtue signal and chastise those who critique it. Many fans simply want to enjoy their games without being reminded of the political strife occurring in the real world. When game developers push a specific agenda, be it progressive or conservative, it often detracts from the experience. That's why a significant number of gamers advocate for studios to keep divisive political agendas out of entertainment, especially with beloved franchises like Mass Effect. The ratings for this game clearly reflect the sentiments of the majority. Gamers want escapism, not a constant political lecture. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. That wraps it up for today. I hope you found the video insightful and engaging. If you did, I'd appreciate your support. Leave a comment, hit that like button, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel.